Greetings and welcome to In Depth. I'm Dike Rostant. One good thing about rising wheat prices is that we are exploring alternatives that are local. Founder of Slimdown 360, Jody White, is an advocate for moving past the initial or primary use of root crops and adding value to them for consumption in new ways. We go in depth on some of those solutions now.
Really need to eat some aloo there, boy, Jody.
My name is Jody White and I am from Slimdown 360 and I'm best known for the agro-processing activities that my company does. Today we're here at a sweet potato field that's set up and run by Mr. Kemraj Singh. We first got into this business honestly by accident. One day I was making fresh pasta for some customers that we had, and I wondered why couldn't we do this with some local ingredients. And I spent a couple of years actually trying to formulate a product that contained absolutely no imported wheat, and it turned into a profitable business. Back in 2018, we actually did the very first export of sweet potato fries out of Trinidad. And again, those products came from one of these fields right here.
And those products came from fields in Trinidad and Tobago. And with that, we say, welcome, Jody. How are you doing?
Thank you. I'm fine, thanks.
And take me through, and I know that the business has been, relative to others, is kind of young. But what are some of the things that you, at this point in time, would have told to Jody White when he's now starting on this journey of entrepreneurship?
You know, it's just about small goals for us. You may want this machine, you may want to accomplish this type of sales, capture this type of customer. And we continue to make small steps along the way. Right now, though, it's about trying to make larger leaps. And with things changing, the dynamics of the world changing, we're having to adapt a lot faster than we thought we would have to. Opportunities as well would have emerged. And right now we're creating strategic partnerships that will actually create a paradigm shift in root crops in the Caribbean as a whole.
And with your thought on that in terms of the dynamic changing and looking at opportunities, I want to ask your thoughts on the increases that we're seeing in wheat flour.
I mean, the increases are worldwide in just about everything. And these problems are problems that have been happening for the last 20, 30, 40, 50 years. And it's a cycle. Prices go up, people complain, we need to do something, people forget about it. Prices go up, people complain, we need to do something, people forget about it. So this really isn't new. But I think the biggest change that we're going to see, especially coming through efforts like us, is that we've actually put a lot of private sector money into the development of the industry. And I believe that that is going to make the biggest change. Now, there are nuances with trying to make the switch from imported items to local. And us as producers, we are very much aware. And I would say that my company in particular, our prices have actually fallen by about 40% since we launched. And that's through the introduction of technology. I mean, most companies can't say that they reduced their prices by 40% when they started, but that's actually what we did. And it's a direction we want to keep doing. We see areas of benefit that we could exploit, and we're putting efforts towards it. It's not going to yield tomorrow. You're not going to see more reductions next month, but within the next year, we're thinking that we could actually make some significant developments.
And that is one of the things that I wanted to talk about a little later, but we could talk about it now in the sense that you're talking about the introduction of technology, possibly scaling up a little bit, leading to a drop in price. What is the state of play as it is right now from your view with regard to alternative flour or flours in the country?
You know, root crop prices are a lot higher for flour than for wheat flour. And with the existing technology applied in Trinidad, that cannot change overnight. It's going to take some time. But there are technologies, and when we say technology, it's not just really IT. We're talking about technology as new farming techniques and different things that we could do, different approaches that are going to help us reduce the cost of production. And I mean, everything is in stages, but those things, when applied together, once we see the results, we believe that we are going to get these prices down significantly to a level that consumers could say, hey, this is acceptable to me.
And I think part of it is because many of the individuals producing some of these root crop flowers, they're a lot more cottage industry. So there's one person who is peeling, well, sourcing the root crops, cleaning, peeling, dehydrating, milling, and then packaging. So what kind of availability are we looking like? So, and because we already talked about prices a little bit, but the availability of some of those alternative, especially the root crop flowers.
So there are many people producing very small amounts within the industry, and then there are people like us. Now, typically, to be very honest with you, we have very limited supply to Trinidad from us. We actually export almost everything that we make. And it's because for us, we were unable to really compete with regular wheat prices here. So we had to find another type of customer who was willing to pay higher prices. And that type of customer to us was people who had allergies, people who could not eat wheat, who had conditions. Those are the people who are accustomed already paying more for cassava flour in the US. And those are the people who we would typically sell to. Yes, we sell to here in smaller amounts, but most of our products typically go to that type of customer. Now we're saying, listen, we've made some money from those segments. Those segments are profitable for us. Now we can use the money that we made and try to apply it here in Trinidad and apply it to scale, apply it to technology, and try to work on the local market with what we have learned, the capital we've attained, the networks we've created, and that's how we see value being created for Trinidad and Tobago.
And in terms of reinvesting those profits that you would have made, profits including lessons and networks, we resume the conversation on the other side, but we take a short break. We are speaking about creating added value for root crops with the founder of Slimdown 360, Jody White. Stay with us. We return with more. I have a comment, somebody saying the only thing missing is the shrimp, but at the same time, welcome back. We are going into adding value to root crops. We're doing so with the founder of Slimdown 360, Jody White. Now, Jody, I have a question. It really that simple? It really that easy in terms of using the cassava fettuccine as a substitute for the wheat flour?
Yeah, the pasta is easy. I mean, it handles like regular pasta. It tastes a little bit different, not much different. It's about 90% similar. The texture is, of course, a little bit heavier because it's pure cassava. So it is slightly heavier. But it is a very nice product and it cooks so quick, in a minute and a half, it's done.
That is something that I want to ask about, because you see that minute and a half with wheat flour. Sometimes somebody call you, so you go to turn or this and that. Is it that you need to list or follow the instructions to the T? Is it a little bit forgiving? What in terms of the logistics of actually preparing it? What is that like in relation to wheat flour?
So gluten-free products are different from products with gluten. products with gluten are obviously a lot more forgiving. You can overcook pasta, in our case, and you can overcook it for 4 or 5 minutes and nothing much happens to it. In a gluten-free product, you have a narrower window between cooked and overcooked. So you can't overcook it for more than a minute or two for the most. You're going to have bad results. And similarly, we get the question with roti. I want to make a cassava flour roti, but it's not working out the same way. And why? And the reason is that, again, gluten in wheat flour gives flour the stretch. So when you roll a roti, right, it stretches out and it stays whole. But you find that if you try to make a pure cassava flour roti, there is no stretch. It's going to tear apart. So you can't roll it as easily. You're going to have to more do a press or roll it between two layers of wax paper and then put that directly on a pan. And you may find difficulty in getting a cassava flour roti to swell. And again, it's because of the term gluten. Now, when you cook a regular roti that has gluten in it, you put it on one side, it seals it off. You put it on the other side on the heat, it seals it off, and now air gets trapped. So as air expands in your roti, it rises. Now, with gluten-free products and gluten-free roti, there is not that much trapping of air, so air escapes easily, which is why a pure cassava flour roti does not swell. Now, there are things that we can do to get a cassava flour roti to swell a little bit. It's a little bit more complicated in cooking, not that much, but there are things we could do. But the one thing I'd like to say is that a lot of people expect the alternatives to taste and feel exactly like the original wheat flour. And that's like saying, I want my apple juice to taste like my orange juice. They are two totally different commodities. Now, we can say that they taste similar. So, you know, when you eat an alternative meat, you may say, oh, this tastes like chicken. Chicken is the standard. In flour, wheat flour is the standard. Oh, does this taste like wheat flour or something else? So cassava flour is similar. And if you want to make something like a cake, a muffin, a pancake, it's very, very, very similar. It's a lower protein content, which means that it becomes not as crisp as when you make a waffle with regular flour. It doesn't get as crisp, but it's because of the lower protein content. When it comes to making certain other things like pastries with cassava flour, it gets a little bit more complicated, again, because of that lack of gluten. Now, when it comes to bread, which is a massive topic here, we're accustomed in Trinidad to eating what's known as sandwich bread. And sandwich breads are typically high gluten breads, which is why they hold together, they swell so high. And cassava flour, just if you're using simple ingredients, it just doesn't behave the same way. However, in other countries, the word bread looks totally different. Breads might be flat, bread might be pancake-like. So it's going to involve us changing the way that we eat a little bit if we are ever going to accept root crop flours in its pure state. There are the opportunities for doing composite flours, which means we mix it in with other flours. That's always there. So we have so many options on the table. It's just we're going to start working on these things.
And Jody, you know why I feel that like I touched a nerve, or is something that you talk about all the time? You realize that you slow down and start reading and spell for me. Especially when you hit that word gluten. But in terms of supply chain potential, if we're looking within one Trinidad and Tobago and to the region, what does that look like in terms of saying we are able to supply this thing so that you are able to change taste or work towards changing taste? Because one of the things that food agent or food chains have been talking about is, can we get a consistent supply, a supply that we can rely on so that we're able to start making the switch? I made the example in another conversation of another jurisdiction using breadfruit instead of or in addition to their potato fries. What does that supply look like within the region, to your knowledge?
Now, I have to take a step back to answer that, and you'll see why. There is enough land space in the Caribbean to feed ourselves with respect to sweet potatoes, cassava, other root crops. There are enough farmers in the region. There are enough chemicals. There's enough resources to feed ourselves if we need to. However, there are challenges along the way with getting products into the ground, out of the ground, into processing facilities, to the customer. There are several challenges along the way that have to be addressed to create an efficient, reliable value chain. And it's only people who have experience in the industry could actually identify those features and create a sustainable value chain. And what we find happening is a lot of people are coming to the market now and saying, listen, we can do this. We can create an efficient value chain for sweet potatoes and cassava. But the reality is that they have never done it before. So if they start a project, very quickly you find those people having a lot of difficulties with supply chain and realizing, hey, I'm able to get it in the ground, but now I can't get enough out of it. There are so many challenges with timing the weather, timing just so many different features. It's hard to get into all right now. We've spent the last 5 years learning the value chain, learning what happens at the farming level, learning what happens at the level before the farmers, learning why yields in the Caribbean are a little bit lower than they should be, learning how to get it from the field. So I've invested personally a lot of time in learning. And that is why we believe we have the right tools through experience to be able to feed the entire Caribbean. The project that we have coming out shortly, and we'll release it in about a month, everybody will understand what were the missing gaps and why these gaps are going to be addressed. And the results would honestly be seen in about a year. It's going to take a year, but it's going to be seen, and we have to start.
And I'm very glad you're able to, you've put in work so that you're able to deal with the incremental steps towards success. And in the final minute that we have, I want you to talk a little more once again about changing taste and the importance of that. While we have a little cover, I think it's a cassava crepe. So if you want, you can also take us through that, but we ask for your closing words while that's taking place. Thanks.
Yes. As a consumer myself, I fully understand the opinions of the general population. We want to try cassava flour, sweet potato flour. We may not be too sure how to use it, and the prices may be hard on our pockets. And as the largest producer of this in the entire Caribbean, yes, I am the largest producer, I understand. And honestly, I agree. And we are making steps towards improving this for the entire region, and we know that the benefits are going to come for the satisfaction of the entire Caribbean.
I want to thank you so much for that. As we're seeing, approximately 3 minutes on each side, and that lack of gluten making for a flatter product, but at the same time, one that is still viable. And hopefully we're able to allow ourselves the opportunity to say, okay, well, this is something that we can try. I remember there was a tagline once by Dennis Hall, try it, you're going to like it. But I want to thank you very much, Jody. Jody White, founder of Slimdown 360, looking at how we can add value to root crops. And on behalf of the entire TTT News team, I'm Dike Rostant. This has been In Depth. Thank you for joining us.